Last night, I believe we witnessed the greatest Glastonbury Festival set of all time. Let me explain. So, Coldplay at Glastonbury Festival. The crazy thing about this is that I wasn't planning to watch this set. I just happened to be flicking through TV channels last night and saw that Coldplay were on. I know Coldplay put on an amazing Glastonbury set. So I just started watching it, and gradually as the performance progressed, I became more and more certain that this was the greatest Glastonbury Festival set of all time. And I want to explain why I think this is the case, and also talk firstly a bit about what Coldplay mean to me. So I was born in 1995. I guess in a very real sense, I've grown up with Coldplay. As long as I can remember they've been a band. I've literally got down from my shelf Parachutes, the original CD, and A Rush of Blood to the Head. 2 for 10, or even 2 for 7 from HMV back in the day. This is a band I remember listening to on my blue second generation iPod Nano in year 8 of school, year 9 of school. I think that would have been probably in about 2007, 2008. And even before that, I remember growing up in the car with my dad driving to places and hearing songs like Clocks on Kerrang radio. And I think that was my moment falling in love with Coldplay. And I've really loved them ever since. I've always seen Coldplay as kind of parallel to Muse, who are my favourite band of all time. I know the bands are friends, and they've had a similar kind of parallel to their careers coming up at the same time, even playing together. And this Coldplay set, you think about what a Glastonbury set needs to do. It just felt like it did every bit of justice to Glastonbury as a piece of musical heritage, British musical heritage, as well as the band's own career, which now spans over 20 years. Starting out with the intro logo. This might not mean a lot to some people, but this is the original, or not the original, but the old school BBC logo before several of the BBC's endless rebrands. And I think it just shows that Chris Martin totally understands Glastonbury. The BBC have almost always been at Glastonbury, certainly in my lifetime, and just nodding to the era that came before Coldplay, bringing a bit of that nostalgia in with this old school kind of waiting screen. Before Coldplay even came on stage, I think was the perfect way to set the scene. And then once we came on, we've got to acknowledge the crowd size. I thought Elton John last year had probably the biggest Glastonbury set we'd ever see in terms of the size of the crowd in front of him, but tell me if you can see any room in these pictures left in the crowd. It was rammed. To put it crudely, it was simply rammed. And when you look at Glastonbury on the Pyramid Stage and a full crowd, I think that is probably one of the most awe-inspiring sights in all of live music. A lot of people on Twitter have been rightly pointing out how cathartic it is even seeing this crowd, given that just 4 years ago we were questioning whether it would ever happen again at the height of the COVID pandemic, with social distancing and all these live events completely shut down. So it's a beautiful moment to reflect on just how big a Glastonbury set this was. The glowing wristbands, this is pure genius, and I think I almost took for granted coming up to Glastonbury that I thought I knew what to expect from Coldplay. I knew they were going to bring glowing wristbands, and I knew their last Glastonbury headline set also looked stunning because of it. I think it's such a genius and simple trick. I believe it's probably one that costs a lot of money and only a band like Coldplay could fully pull off, but having these LED wristbands on pretty much everyone in the crowd that sync up to the music, suddenly Glastonbury is yours. And I think what I miss from a lot of other Pyramid Stage headline slots is the atmosphere doesn't seem to carry out through into the crowd. But Coldplay, every single time with this simple trick, are able to do this. It's like they bring their stadium tour to festivals rather than just showing up to a festival. It's Coldplay's festival the moment they start. Now, the set list. I think when you are a band the size of Coldplay with, God, what is it, 7, 8 albums now? You are going to have a lot of songs that are going to miss out of your sets, and probably a lot of bangers that are going to be missed out. And you've also got the knowledge that with your career spanning so far, and with their most popular song still being a song from 1999, Yellow, arguably, you know, you might have to not as much play the newer songs from your album and more recent work than play the hits. I think Coldplay just really perfectly nailed the balance. There wasn't a single song that I thought, man, I wish they'd played that. They really missed that out. You've got Yellow in there, the classic opener, the high energy. You've got Higher Power, which is such an energetic song, Adventure of a Lifetime. Paradise, one of my favourite Coldplay songs. Just the start of this set. Paradise going into the Scientist, and that Scientist performance, that the Scientist was literally trending on Twitter because of how powerful it was. And then you get the beautiful reverse, where I almost expected them to put old footage of the band at Glastonbury on stage on the screens. On the live broadcast, it zoomed into the screen, and it felt like a bit of a fever dream. Maybe they missed a tiny trick there, but it was just this beautiful reverse transition into clocks. Looking at those opening tracks, I think only 2 or 3 of those opening 8 songs even came out in the 2010s. The rest of them are 2000s, and Coldplay have had many eras as a band. I think the 2010s are capitalized by their movement towards pop and more kind of EDM sounds. The 2000s was quite alternative, and even Parachutes is quite a mellow alt folk album. Then you get the kind of piano rock that everyone knew and loved them for in Rush of Blood to the Head and X and Y. I think they balanced the eras beautifully, and they almost, actually, if you look at it, with a few exceptions like Sparks, went forwards in time throughout their set. I'm sure they thought about that. I'm sure that's kind of intentional. But I just think it was genius, and I think the set was done absolutely perfectly. So full credit to Coldplay for that. Now, a moment that completely wowed me again was the My Universe tribute to BTS. I think Coldplay are a band that bring people together and really unite a lot of cultures in a divisive time. So to have BTS referenced in this way when they're serving military service in Korea, as is mandated, it was a really beautiful moment. And I've never seen the Glastonbury Pyramid Stage projected up like this. It looks like the Sphere in Las Vegas, and I had no idea that was possible. I think Coldplay are one of the very few bands that kind of surprise you with what is even possible at a Glastonbury headline set. Muse are probably the other band that can do that, but I think you kind of know what to expect at Glastonbury, and then suddenly Coldplay come through and the pyramid has now got images on it on all 4 sides. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen that before, and that just absolutely blew me away. And now we have to get onto the features, because part of what made this set so special, Coldplay's 5th time headlining Glastonbury, they're not the kind of band who wanted to experience that alone. They brought so many people in, and names that we weren't even expecting to be there. We had Michael J. Fox on stage. Michael J. Fox of Back to the Future fame, obviously also an amazing campaigner for Parkinson's disease and finding a cure for it. Chris and the guys said that Back to the Future apparently had inspired them to be in a band, which is amazing. We also had the one and only Little Sims coming out, which is crazy because there has been no song released between Coldplay and Little Sims. It was performance of a new song, which I believe from setlist.com is called We Pray. I was there like a clown, Googling the lyrics, trying to be like, I don't know this song, what's this song? But obviously it's unreleased. That was the live debut. And Sims, I think, is an artist who the industry has been respecting more than the public for a long time. She's got like 3 million monthly on Spotify, but you look at the kind of people in the industry who've supported her. Damon Albarn and Gorillaz, they got her on a feature early with Garage Palace, which is a brilliant song. Kendrick Lamar in 2015 said Little Sims was his favourite UK artist. And now you've got Chris Martin bringing her out with a Coldplay feature on the way for their final studio album, at least as far as we're aware. And it just felt like a really special moment. It was really special for me with Laura and Vula because Laura grew up in the same part of Birmingham that I did, and seeing someone from your own ends kind of on the Pyramid Stage at Glastonbury, it's always a special moment. And finally, everything happening in Palestine, everything happening in Gaza, I think it was on the forefront of a lot of people's minds at Glastonbury. Several artists have spoken about it. We've seen a lot of Palestinian flags in the crowd. For Coldplay to bring out Eliana, a Chilean Palestinian artist, for a feature, I think that is a really touching kind of tribute to Palestine. And Chris did mention Israel as well. I think Coldplay really didn't want to be divisive, but also I think it's important to recognise the reality of a situation and what is happening to the civilians in Gaza and how disproportionate that is actually in that conflict in particular. So having a Palestinian artist on stage was really, really touching. And now I want to get onto a moment that, hand on heart, you may think I'm exaggerating, you may think it's hyperbole. I cried at this moment because I was watching this set live on TV and I wasn't sure what to expect. And Coldplay moved from the main stage of Glastonbury to a brand new D stage which they had built. And when you have live performances, you have the main stage, which is the A stage. Sometimes you have acts that have like a walkway to a B stage. Coldplay had multiple, so this was the D stage, they called it. It was a bit further into the crowd. And I could kind of feel the daunting kind of anxiety almost on their behalf. Coldplay, you know, perform in front of tens of thousands of people like it's nothing every week. But to be in that position in Glastonbury, where I think even Chris commented, damn, I've never seen how many of you guys are out there. You know, I'd have been a lot more nervous if I'd known. And the song that they chose to start with on this D stage was a song called Sparks off this beautiful album, Parachutes. And I don't know what it is about this song, but I think music can carry memories. And this one in particular, it took me back to that time when I was, you know, in my early teenage years in school. And I didn't really have much control over my life. And I think I had good friends, but I was sad in a lot of ways. I wasn't doing creatively what I wanted to. I wasn't really like fully at ease with my own identity. And I wasn't as confident as I am now. And this song, it just took me back to that time. And it's also the fact that it was a simpler time when all I had to do was, you know, go to school, come home, finish homework, play Halo 3 on Xbox with my friends. And it's like, this song feels so particularly mournful and melancholy. And whenever I listen to it, it does make me feel emotional. And I think seeing Coldplay perform it in front of so many people in 2024, you know, a whole 24 years since it came out, it was quite overwhelming, even for me watching on the TV. And I could see a lot of people in the crowd were crying over the course of this set. And I think that's why it is so special, because it's this band who have always been there, you know, through multiple decades, 2.5 decades now. And suddenly going back to the very start, and Chris Martin talking about those early days performing at Glastonbury on the emerging bands stage, my own hopes and dreams for bands that I work with at that very early stage. You couldn't not be overwhelmed with emotion by it, and I know I certainly was. I always link it back. I know Muse at the same time were friends with Coldplay when they were first performing Glastonbury in 2000. There's a really cool clip of Matt Bellamy from Muse saying, check out a band called Coldplay, they're playing in a tent later in the year 2000 at another festival called Eurockines. And it takes me back to even looking through old YouTube clips of like our early Glastonbury performances for Muse and Coldplay, and just reflecting on those moments. So Sparks, I think, in a weird way, was my kind of standout point of this set, because it's just such a gorgeous song. And I think it reminds you that for all the glamour and the lights and the electronic sounds in Coldplay's music now, at the very core of that all, the reason they're successful is because of how brilliant a songwriter and performer Chris Martin is, and the rest of the band, of course. Because they were writing songs like this when they were in their early 20s and probably teenage years as well before they came out. Now, another really special moment of this set is the ad-libs from Chris Martin. This kind of gave me the energy of U2's Zoo TV tour. I remember watching clips of it when I was a kid, where Bono would have like access live in his gigs to different TV stations, and he'd flick through them and kind of react live to them. What Chris Martin did was actually get the BBC cameramen and vision mixers and gallery directors involved to show him different interesting people in the crowd. And he was like ad-libbing verses inspired by these people in the crowd that he'd never seen before, because he couldn't have rehearsed this. And imagine he's doing this in front of like a live audience of 120,000, a global TV audience of millions. If you fuck that up, that's going to be out there forever. But he looked so cool, calm and collected. He made a great joke about a group of Coldplay fans at the front coming dressed as One Direction. He made a comment about a guy with a pineapple hat saying, I don't mind because it's all yellow. That's the kind of genius, endearing wit of Chris Martin that I think a lot of people don't appreciate. And the fact that all of this was sung beautifully as well and rhymed, I don't know how you do that, but Chris Martin pulled it off with aplomb. And we also got a really touching tribute to Michael Eavis at the end of this serenading segment. Michael Eavis, aged 90 years old, appeared on the screen. Obviously, when you're 90, your health is going to have deteriorated a bit. But it was a special moment because, of course, without Michael Eavis, none of this would be possible. And Glastonbury is very much his legacy. And I think at the very start of this video I mentioned the legacy BBC broadcast logo as so important to Chris Martin respecting the heritage of Glastonbury. This is Michael Eavis, you know, he must have known Coldplay, they must have known each other for a couple of decades, and just paying tribute to Michael, I think was a really nice moment, a really nice touch, and again, one that a lot of headliners wouldn't have done and wouldn't feel the need to do. But that's why Coldplay are special. And finally, I think the ultimate of this festival performance that made it so special, the unifying message. We're in the middle of a culture war. I think online, social media, the rhetoric, it feels like extreme viewpoints are more at odds than ever, and it's very difficult in any aspect of life to escape that. I was literally playing a game on Steam last night, and even in the game chat of this random robot battling game, people were arguing about Biden and Trump, and there are times when it's really important to think about politics and have those uncomfortable debates and discussions, but we are one human race, and Chris Martin said himself, we're all cousins. That's the beautiful thing about the human race. Sometimes you need unifying forces, and I really believe that Coldplay are one of those unifying forces. They're such a popular band, and their music is so accessible and has so much mass appeal. I think the majority of the world at least likes them. There is going to be a percentile of people who just make hating Coldplay their personality, which, you know, you do you. I wouldn't carry my life that way. I wouldn't be that boring. But if you want to hate Coldplay and make that your personality, sure. But the majority of people, I think, just this kind of music, this kind of beautiful spectacle, if you scroll through Twitter and see what people have been saying, however cynical and hard bitter you are, impossible to not feel joyful when Coldplay play with Michael J. Fox at Glastonbury. Genuinely don't get all the Coldplay hate. To be fair, I don't think the Coldplay hate is there anymore, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. Truly one of the great bands over the last 25 years, incredible live performances, banger after banger, never seen Glastonbury look like this. They bring the people together, and that's what Glastonbury is all about. Whoever you are, you're brought together in that moment. And I'm a big Muse fan. I think I've mentioned it like 4 times over the course of this video. Before tonight, or before last night, I would have said that Muse's 2004 performance, their breakthrough performance at Glastonbury, was the greatest ever at the festival. I think it might have been topped now. I think Coldplay 20 years later exactly, 2024, is the greatest Glastonbury performance of all time. And maybe Muse will come back and do something even bigger. I would love to see it, but I think this was just the perfect, the ultimate Glastonbury performance. Because what band knows the festival better than Coldplay? It was a really moving one for me, and I think it was really special for so many people out there as well, whether old or new Coldplay fans. So let me know in chat if you agree with what I'm saying, if you think this was the best Glastonbury set of all time, and if you have any others that you think are top sets that are overlooked, whether it's the Muse one I mentioned or another one, let me know in the comments. Catch me live on Twitch at 6 PM every Monday for some great new music, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.